Welcome to What is Going On for new thought from the edge of Each week on OMTimes' flagship radio show, veteran broadcaster, author, and media consultant Sandie Sedgbeer conducts thought-provoking interviews with inspirational authors, artists, musicians, scientists, speakers, and filmmakers who are working at the point where spirituality and science meet consciousness at the very edge of Here is your host, Sandie Sedgbeer.
Hello. It's a paradox. We all want to live a long, happy and productive life, but none of us really want to grow older. Whilst we cannot stop the passage of time, however, it does seem that we can put more life, energy, joy and fulfilment into the years that we have. And, according to my guest today, therein lies the key to extending our lifespan. Michael Murray, ND, is one of the world's leading authorities on natural medicine, the author of 30 books with 6 million copies in print. He's literally written the textbook of natural medicine for healthcare practitioners, as well as the Encyclopedia of Natural Medicine for the lay public. A graduate and former faculty member of Bastyr University in Seattle, where he also serves on the Board of Regents, Dr. Michael Murray joins me now to discuss his latest book, The Longevity Matrix, which reveals everything we need to know to live a better, stronger, healthier, longer and more joyful life. Dr. Michael Murray, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you.
Well, Sandie, it's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Now, you say that it's not enough to live longer. Our desire should be to live better and stronger with a tremendous amount of health, energy, fulfillment and joy. And if we focus on accomplishing those goals, then living longer will naturally take care of itself. So let's start by having a little conversation about some of the myths and misconceptions around longevity. So many people, there's been so many theories that have been posited about longevity, especially in recent years. We've got the telomere theory, we've got the inflammation theory, we've got all kinds of things, that say if we can eliminate those, we will live a longer life. What, in your experience, is the truth? As far as we can tell.
Right. I mean, all those are valid theories, and they provide many additional health benefits if we focus on reducing inflammation or reducing the effects of aging on our cells and extending our telomeres and all those things. I think all of those theories can produce not only a longer life, but better health. But I think before we even get there, we have to create a reason why for people. And it's hard for people, I think, to get to a place of wanting, of desiring to live longer if they're in pain, if they're suffering, if their life's not fulfilling, if they're not joyful, if they're not vibrant. So, I looked at this situation just, based on my clinical experience and interacting with people, over my life. And I really questioned whether a lot of people were desiring to live longer. I think, that's the elephant in the room. And so, my goal was to, and what's emphasized in my book is helping people live better. And people want to live, they want things now. At least that's how we are in the U.S. culture. Some cultures, they have kind of like a built-in patience and understanding of the importance of a foundation and that things take time. But in America, we're kind of based upon immediate gratification. And so I wanted to help people feel better immediately, and then it's easier to get them to take a longer-term approach, and that's really the whole beginning of chapter of the longevity matrix, and reinforced throughout the entire book is, hey, if you follow these guidelines, not only are you going to live longer, you're going to live better, stronger, healthier. And I think that's really the key focus. Longevity is kind of the outcome that will happen naturally if we focus on taking care of those fundamental approaches.
I think that's actually quite genius to start with the question, why do you want to live longer? You know, what is it that you want to achieve? And most people will say, well, I want to carry on being fit and being able to do all the things that I do. But you're absolutely right, too, that most people don't think that far ahead unless they've got, ailments that, that really do restrict their life. We all tend to think that we are immortal. When we're asked why, we have to stop and we have to think about it. And now we have to focus our minds. So I think that's a really good way to start the book. I read an article, I think it was yesterday, the BBC News had put it out, and it was saying that actually the fertility rate is about to have a jaw-dropping global crash in children being born. And all over the world they've been doing all of these studies, and they say that 23 nations are expected to see their populations halve in the next 80 years, and that there's going to be more people around the age of 80 than there are young people. Well, if that's the case, I mean, we've got another good reason for wanting to live better and be healthier if we're going to, go on and maybe even have to work in our 80s as well.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what we're going to see in birth rates, 6 to 9 months from now with all this lockdown.
Well, that's true.
I think we might see a population explosion, but who knows? There's so much uncertainty in the world right now. It's a perfect time to really kind of assess where we each are individually, and then as a society where we want to take things. It's really kind of a watershed moment. My son, who's 23, had a great quote. I'll give it to him. A few months ago, as things started to relax here, and we're in Arizona where I live, we were shut down, pretty significantly for a couple of months, and then as things started to open up, my son said, if people don't come out better from this lockdown, they did something wrong. And I really like that idea. I think this has been kind of a big reset for a lot of people in setting up their priorities, and Ralph Waldo Emerson said it best: health is the first wealth. And with this particular pandemic, it's the health of our immune system that is really the critical determinant of our ability to win against this virus. Yes. And our immune system is a direct reflection of our overall health, and not just of our body, but our minds and our emotions play a huge role in the functioning of our immune system as well. So it's really, I think it's a possibility that this epidemic or pandemic is going to lead to some fundamental changes in the way that people live their lives. And it's my hope that it leads people to be more inspired, to be as healthy as possible, because this is a wake-up call. If you look at the people that are at risk for having severe consequences or dying, it's people that have low immune function, and so we got to build up that immunity.
Yeah. Well, your book is coming out at the perfect time. I mean, it's at 123,000 words. It's a big book, and it is absolutely riveting because it is filled with information. And, I haven't picked up a health book for a couple of years, but in that time, it seems that science has really, there's just so much that's been happening. And all of the new words I found very interesting. Words like inflammagen and aging, and the glycosylation and the mitochondrial decline and all of these things that you've been looking at, which gives us a really good insight into how aging happens. And I don't think many people really know. But what would you say? I mean, there's a number of factors, obviously. You said about telomeres, we know about free radicals, etc. What would you say are the most important things that we need to focus? Diet, exercise, what else?
Yeah, I'm chuckling because you've read my book, so you understand kind of my philosophy. Most of us are familiar with cars, and most of us has had something go wrong with our car at some particular point in time. Flat tire, dead battery, transmission going out of gas, lost our keys, whatever. And there's so many things that are interrelated to make that car work properly, that if something is not working, not functioning, or not there, that car is not going to function. Well, our body is a system that has much more complexity than that. And so when I get the question, what can I do to be healthier, live longer, live better? What's the one thing that you recommend? My answer is do everything that you can. And I know that sounds it sounds like I'm passing the buck there, but what I'm really trying to emphasize is that our health is a system of these interrelated parts, and we have to have everything working as best we can to be functioning optimally. Now, our body has many backup systems, and we can get by if something goes wrong, but that's when things are in a state of disease. But I don't want that. You don't want that, and I'm sure most of the listeners don't want that. They want to live with vibrancy and live in an optimal state. And in order to achieve that, there's some fundamental needs that they have to provide the body, and nutrition is certainly up there, but so too is getting enough sleep, exercising, avoiding harmful health habits, and so too are thinking positive thoughts and flooding our mind with positivity and gratitude and joy and all these positive states, because they have a huge role in vibrating throughout every cell of our body to promote a healthier state. And we also know that emotions play a big role in our health. Love produces many different biochemical reactions in our body that are beneficial compared to things like anger and hate and jealousy that produce negative consequences. So it's really about doing everything that we can as much as possible. And none of us is perfect, but as I said, our body has a tremendous capacity to compensate, and we can overcome some of the stress or sins that we do to ourselves by overcompensating in other areas. And that's again what the book is really based upon. And Sandie, I can go off on all sorts of tangents. One quick tangent I want to get to is another theme in the book is getting people off of various medications. And and so people may say, well, why is that important? I try to go into that. So when I talk about the need for a natural approach to GERD or heartburn, there's a reason I want to get people off these proton pump inhibitors like Nexium and Prilosec, and that is because studies show that when people start taking these drugs, their health deteriorates. These drugs are associated with a long list of side effects, and one of those side effects is a shorter lifespan. And if you understand how these drugs work, you can understand why they're putting people in the grave sooner. So my point is that if someone's relying on a medication that is ultimately doing them harm, we need to get them on a more natural approach that gets at the root cause of the illness instead of taking a biochemical Band-Aid that's going to end up causing more harm than good in the long run. Our medications are very good at reducing symptoms, but in that process, they disrupt other body processes, and that leads to not only side effects, but also, in many cases, a shorter lifespan, and nobody wants that.
Absolutely. I love the fact that the book takes a completely holistic approach, and you have all of these little, suggestions dotted throughout the book. And I really enjoyed the part where you bring in the relaxation and the stress and laughter, the importance of laughter, which cannot be underestimated, and the feel-good hormones that we produce because of that. So I do think that it is that, and that's different. That's different in the kinds of books that I used to read that were health books that are just telling you, you take this supplement for this and that's it. So, in a sense, it was a healthier alternative to taking drugs, but it didn't give you the holistic emotional part of the equation, which is so important.
Yeah, it does require a holistic approach, and again, that goes back to the theme about living better. And we've all known people that that are certifiable health nuts, right? They exercise, they're in great physical shape, they're very strict with their diet, they're somewhat fanatical, but yet they may die early, or they may be unhappy, and that's because they're ignoring other aspects of their life, and that's why I really focus on creating purpose and fulfillment in our lives. I have so many great stories. Some of them I put in the book, others I didn't. But I'm going to share one that I think is really germane to kind of where we're going with this. But I had a patient, Anne, and Anne was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer. It was her fourth bout, and boy, she was riddled with cancer. It was in her brain, it was in her bone, it was in her liver. And she had a very poor prognosis. I saw her in the middle of October, and there's a lot that we could do to support her health. And I was getting her on a program, but something over the years taught me that it was really important in helping people have a goal that was not too far off in the future that they could achieve. And so I got her on a program. I told her to come back in a week, and at that visit I really focused on what in her life was important in the near future for her to experience. And so then it was like close to the end of October, and I said, in the next few months, what would you really like to experience? And she said, I would love to have one more Christmas with my family. And, I'm almost teared up, as she said that to me. And I said, that's phenomenal. I said, I think we can get there. It's like, less than 2 months away. And it was her oncologist told her, you better get your affairs in order because, your days are numbered. So it seemed like that wasn't possible to her, but she had such a will about her, and it was apparent in her personality that this was someone that when she put her mind to something, it was powerful. And so I set up a follow-up visit the first week of January, and she showed up, and I was happy to see her, and we hugged, and it was just a celebration. She made it. She saw one more Christmas, and I said, okay, and now what? And she said, well, my oldest granddaughter is going to be, graduating from high school in June, and I would really love to see that. I said, all right, we know what we have to do. We have to keep you on the program, and you have to focus on what that experience will feel like for you and how important it is to you and how much you want to be there. And so we scheduled another visit mid-June, and lo and behold, she showed up. And Sandie, this went on for 8 years. This went on for 8 years. This is a woman that was supposed to be dead in a matter of weeks, and she lived for another 8 years. And it was constant. It was constant finding something that wasn't too far off, something that gave her a will and a purpose. And so, one of the exercises in my book is helping people identify 10 reasons why they want to live longer. What do they want to see? What do they have to accomplish? It might be a bucket list. What is something they've wanted to do but it's never done? These things are important. The power of the human will is incredible. I'm reminded of that anytime we're all faced with challenges. I'm not immune to that. And most of the time I'm quickly able to see them as opportunities and gifts. And one of the things that trained me with feeling like that, experience, many times we get worried about things that happen to us, and we turn out to find out that, boy, that was one of the best things that ever happened to me. I don't know what I was worried about. And for me, one tool that I used whenever I would fall prey to, feeling sorry for myself or wondering what life was all about, I read a book in my 20s that made a big influence in my life. It's a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And Viktor Frankl was a psychologist that was imprisoned in Auschwitz during World War II, and he saw great tragedy and suffering and the death of his family, and he details all this in this book. But throughout it, he came up with a theory about being able to help people in his field of psychology by helping them assign meaning to the events in their lives. And that theory, that practice is called logotherapy, and it's a fundamental component of psychology today. And boy, you open up any page practically in that book, and you read a few paragraphs, and you realize that your life is in pretty good shape compared to what they were going through. And we're faced with a lot going on right now, a lot of uncertainty. And, I'm focused on this right now because it's so important for people to look at the possibility of rebirth, possibility that this may be a gift for the entire planet, even though it's coming with some suffering and loss. There's some things that may come from this that are great. And I know that may sound counterintuitive to a lot of people, but they need to personalize this and ask better questions. What can I learn from what I'm going through right now? How can I use this to make my life better? These are examples of powerful questions that our subconscious mind, when we put something in front of it, it focuses on what we're focused on. And so by consciously asking better questions, we can create a better life. And so, again, what am I excited about in my life? What is some of the key factors that make me want to live longer? What do I want to experience more of in my life? How do I create more joy, love, passion, and vitality? These are examples of things I like to put in front of my subconscious mind on a regular basis. And just like I condition my physical body, I condition my subconscious mind and my attitude by exercising it. And these are examples of how we do that, by consciously placing the things that we want to focus on and have more of in our life in front of our subconscious mind.
I'm with you there, Michael. You're listening to What is Going On. I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, and my guest today is one of the world's leading authorities on natural medicine, Michael Murray, ND, the author of 30 books with 6 million copies in print. And we're talking about his latest book, The Longevity Matrix, How to Live Better, Stronger and Longer. We'll be back with more from Michael Murray after the break.
The future of internet radio is here. OMTimes Radio, IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hello, I'm Sandie Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes' flagship radio show, What is Going On. As a long-time editor, book judge, spiritual magazine publisher and radio host, I've read thousands of books and interviewed hundreds of authors and teachers. So I know what's worth reading and what isn't. Now, with the spiritual book market growing increasingly crowded, more and more people are seeking my help in finding the authentic voices, the empowering tools, and the genuine skip the BS guidance that will make the most difference to their spiritual development. So I decided to make it easier by bringing my knowledge, experience, and considerable network of contacts together in the No BS Spiritual Book Club. There are no ads, no joining fees, no obligations, and no BS. Just an ever-growing library compiled by recognisable and respected names of the 10 best books that help them the most on their journeys. Plus, free book excerpts, audios, and live video interviews where you can quiz them about their spiritual journeys and their 10 best list choices. Your time and money are valuable, your spiritual journey even more so. If you're looking for genuine guidance from people who walked this path before you, check out Sedgbeer.com. Click on the No BS Spiritual Book Club tab and join the club. That's Sedgbeer.com, SEDGBEER.com. I'll see you there.
A social distancing tip.
Putting distance between yourself and others is critical to slowing the spread of coronavirus. So here are ways to stay in contact without the physical contact part. Call, send a text, set up a video conference, post on social media, dedicate a song on the radio. If you have symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath, call your healthcare provider before going to their office. For more info, visit coronavirus.gov.
Let's all do our part, because we're all #alone together. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Dr. Michael Murray, about 30 years ago, I read a book called Death Begins in the Gut, which was a pretty radical concept back then. Nowadays, we are hearing this all the time. The microbiome, the digestive system, health begins there. And we're seeing an explosion of research in these areas, which is really exciting. Tell us a little bit about what you've been writing about as regards the digestive system and the importance.
Yeah, Hippocrates said it well over 2,000 years ago, I think. all health begins in the gut. He also said all disease begins in the gut. So now with the understanding that we're beginning to have of the role of the microbiome in not only gut health, but its influence on overall health coming into the forefront, it really supports that idea. And I really think that what we need to focus on is, building the right terrain. Now, what am I talking about? Well, most people, when they think of the microbiome, this collection of microorganisms in our gut, and how do we influence that, think about using probiotics, which are health-promoting bacteria and yeast. And I think they have their role, but more important is creating the proper terrain. Our microbiome is designed to be extremely diverse, and not just a few organisms, but thousands of different types of yeast, bacteria, viruses, and other microorganisms compose a healthy microbiome. And the way that we create that diversity is through diversity in our diet. And more people are eating the same foods every day. There's very little variety in their diet, and that's not leading to a healthy microbiome. So diet is really the key to having a healthy digestive system and having a healthy microbiome. If we look at cultures that are associated with having greater health, typically they have a greater diversity of plant foods in their diet. These plant foods contain a number of different factors which reduce inflammation and also feed certain types of microorganisms over other types. And it's really amazing what they're finding in terms of how we can influence health by changing the composition of the microbiome. There was a study almost 20 years ago that was published in the famous journal Nature, and they took fat rats and skinny rats, and they just swapped the intestinal microflora. So they took out the microbes from the colon in the fat rats, inoculated the skinny rats, and they became fat. They took they had taken the microbiome of the skinny rats, inoculated it in the fat rats, and they became skinny. And so the researchers said, hey, if this can happen in animals, theoretically it could happen in humans. And we're getting there and understanding how we can influence the gut microbiome. And what looks to be the most effective way is through diet. And not surprisingly, many of the things that we associate with health from a dietary perspective are associated with producing a healthier microbiome. So that's the first thing I want to say about the role of digestive health and overall health. Eating in a health-promoting way tends to lead to changes in the microbiome that are associated with health and longevity. The next thing is just making sure that we're really digesting the food properly, because if we're not digesting the food, then we tend to feed the wrong type of gut bacteria, because they're starting to digest the food components before our bodies had a chance to break them down. So that involves making sure we're secreting enough hydrochloric acid, we're secreting enough bile and digestive enzymes. And in my book, I have questionnaires that help people identify potential weak links. Are they secreting enough hydrochloric acid? Well, if they take this questionnaire, it will determine if they are or not. And it's very similar to the process they would go through seeing me or any integrative or naturopathic physician, someone who's utilizing natural therapies and nutrition to promote health and heal versus using drugs. So, you have to make sure you're actually breaking down that good health-promoting diet you're eating.
Now, we read so much about microbes these days, and obviously probiotics and the importance of them. We read about fecal transplants and how interesting that area of research is. But we can't, is there a way to actually measure what's going on in our gut, what kind of microbes we have, whether we need certain probiotics as opposed to others? So that we could home in on it a little bit tighter than just going to a store and buying something with, 10 billion, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of a heretic, and probiotic manufacturers don't like me talking because I question the effectiveness of many commercially available probiotics. I think it's kind of like building a healthy lawn. Many people have built a lawn from the soil up, and know that the quality of the soil is something that's really important. And then you have to have the right amount of seed, the right amount of water, and then sunlight and fertilizer in order for the grass to grow healthy without weeds and all that. But once you have an established lawn, you don't keep throwing seeds on it. That's not what it needs. It needs to make sure that it's able to support the health of the grass through, again, water, fertilizer, and sunlight. And so that's kind of an analogy, I think, of how we support the microbiome. Our microbiome is like a lush rainforest or an Amazonian jungle. It contains all sorts of different microbes, and it's very lush and diverse. And right now, the approach that's kind of dominant is trying to influence that lush jungle by throwing a few seeds on it. And the seeds don't have anywhere to really grow, and I'm not sure how important the seeds that we're using are. So as far as measurement, there are microbiome assessments that are out there. The one I really like is called Viome, Viome, and it's a measurement of activity of the microorganisms versus measuring what's there. Because if you're just looking at DNA or an RNA, the genetic material to determine what's in your microbiome, that may not be all that important, because what's more important is the activity of the different microbes, and that's what the Viome testing measures. So it's a evolutionary testing method, but I like it a lot because it's just giving us insight as to what's going on there. And in the future, we'll be able to utilize diagnostic testing much better than we are right now. We'll be able to measure what's going on in the microbiome and what gut organisms are playing a role in a person's health or disease state. We'll be able to look at genetic factors to better determine what foods and supplements that people need. And we can use various markers to see how well the body is functioning, but we'll do so in real time. And I'll give you one example of something that's really emerged over the last 20 years, and that's real-time blood glucose measurements. Historically, we've looked for blood sugar disorders by doing fasting blood sugar levels, or an oral glucose tolerance test, or a 2-hour after-meal blood sugar test, or a test called the A1C that measures the level of glucose that's attached itself to proteins on red blood cells. All of those are important tests, but even more useful is a 24-hour continuous blood sugar measurement. And what we've learned by measuring blood sugar levels on a continuous basis is that sometimes doing so is like having a security camera in a shop recording a video versus taking a photograph every 2 or 3 hours. If you're trying to prevent theft, you'd rather have a continuous monitor, a video. If the camera just goes off sporadically, it's going to tell you where the store is at that particular point in time. And that's kind of what we're doing with some of our measurements, which can be very useful, but more useful is to see what's going on over a period of time. And it's amazing. And I talk about this technology in the book, and it's really a breakthrough technology in helping people with blood sugar disorders, which are a huge problem in the UK and in the US and other developed countries. We are overfed now, and as a result, we see this tremendous epidemic of obesity, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistance, and all of the comorbidities or associated conditions that are linked to those states. So eventually, physicians aren't going to be measuring, just blood sugar levels at single points in time. They're going to be looking at what's going on over a longer period of time, and it's great insight. There's a reason why people that have blood sugar disorders don't sleep very well. There's a reason why they get anxious and irritable and depressed, and it's related to fluctuations in their blood sugar measurements. And we can utilize natural therapies and diet to literally flatline a person's blood sugar control. And Sandie, when people have that level of blood sugar control, it is amazing how great they feel. It
is an important one. Mm.
Yeah, and it's also great for them to see what happens when they kind of get off track, when they eat a high glycemic load meal, too much carbohydrate or simple sugars in a meal, and their blood sugar levels spike. That spike and the resultant decline are associated with certain feelings that they can then associate. So they can see, boy, when I feel anxious, irritable, depressed, emotionally labile, that's a result of my blood sugar levels coming down very rapidly. And when I feel great, when I feel energetic, when my mind is clear, when I have abundance of energy, I have a steady state of blood sugar. So it's great for reinforcing, these key dietary strategies and supplement strategies to keep blood sugar levels in a very narrow range, because that's what our bodies and brain is designed to have happen, and we just have gotten way out of balance with the modern diet. We've got to get back to eating in a more healthy way.
Absolutely. I've had, many theories over the years. I've been an amateur health sleuth, always looking for answers. And I remember a friend of mine in San Diego when I was living there. She was very slender, and I went away for 4 weeks on a visit to the UK, and I came back, and I couldn't believe that I was looking at the same girl. She had put on something like 40 pounds in 4 weeks. And it was just so shocking to me. I couldn't imagine how somebody could put on that much weight. And when I asked her what had been going on, she had not been very well, and she'd taken some antibiotics. And, immediately I thought, well, that's obviously done something to her system, and now her system is completely out of whack. But it took her years and years and years to lose that weight. And I started, that was when my interest in what was going on in the digestive system really began to flourish, because it just seemed so weird. But I mean, we've got these huge epidemics of diabetes and obesity, and I wonder how much of that is down to, yes, I don't think that calorie in, calorie out is the complete answer to all of these problems that many people have with unwanted weight gain. I think a lot of it has to do with what they're eating and how that's being digested.
Yeah, Well, absolutely. It's a very complex situation. What I've found is that there's basically four main reasons why people have blood sugar issues and develop insulin resistant obesity and type 2 diabetes. And I'm just going to talk about one of them. Right? Well, stress is a big one. I could spend a whole hour talking about it. And so too is overconsumption of carbohydrates and a lack of exercise and lifestyle. But the one I really want to bring up is the role that environmental pollutants play. They did an interesting study back in 2006. They analyzed blood samples from a large nutrition survey that was done here in the United States, and they divided people by their exposure to a collection of persistent organic pollutants, pesticides, herbicides, these sorts of compounds. And what they found was they also looked at people's BMI, their body mass index. And the dominant theory of type 2 diabetes and insulin resistance is that as people start gaining weight, particularly around their abdomen, it leads to insulin resistance, and they get overweight and then develop type 2 diabetes. But what if there was something else that was not as well known that was responsible for creating this scenario? And I think they uncovered it. So what they did was they looked at body mass index, and they looked at the level of exposure to these pollutants. And they found that in people that were overweight, that had low levels of exposure to these toxic compounds, they didn't get type 2 diabetes. They were still overweight, but they did not get the type 2 diabetes. In contrast, people that were thin, who had high exposure to these pesticides and herbicides, were 36 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes than someone who was morbidly obese.
Wow.
Now, you understand what I'm saying here, because that throws that whole argument out the window. And the level of glyphosate in our environment and in our food it may be one of the key factors that has fueled not only this epidemic of obesity and type 2 diabetes, but also some of their comorbidities. And one of the chief ones is Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is often referred to as type 3 diabetes because it is so closely tied to diabetes. Our brain needs glucose. Our brain cells need glucose. If you become insulin resistant, brain cells don't get their fuel, and without the fuel, they start to dysfunction, and they can't protect themselves. They degenerate, they die, and that leads to Alzheimer's disease. So if we see a situation where these pollutants are seemingly playing a bigger role than even dietary factors, that's an area that is not being addressed sufficiently by conventional medicine, and it's not lessening. We're seeing a movement. There's more organic foods, and there's a growing awareness of the detrimental effects of these man-made chemicals. But the big, even in this era, what's going on right now with this pandemic, I really believe the greatest threat to human health long term is not some killer virus or other pathogen. I think it's this ever increasingly growing load of environmental pollutants. Yeah. And that's the real issue with GMOs, by the way. GMOs were created so that the plant would be resistant to Roundup and other pesticides and herbicides. So the idea was if you could make the plant resistant, you could dump more of these toxins on to kill herbs and pesticides or pests. And so the use of GMOs has increased the amount of pesticide use in the world by something like 500 million pounds. So it's a year. So it's a big problem.
Absolutely, it is. Now, you are the head scientist for Enzyme Medica. You worked with Natural Factors, both companies whose products I use, Digest Gold, PGX, etc. You've been involved in the formulation of many different things that we're beginning to learn about now and understand the importance of. Is there something that you're working on now that we don't know about but should?
Yes. Gosh, I don't know how to get into it, but I'm going to try. Because how much time do we have left, Sandie?
Not a lot. We've probably got about 5 minutes max.
Okay, great. Okay, so what we're working on right now, rather intensely, is everybody's become aware of the endocannabinoid system. This is a system, control system in our body that has been made famous by cannabis, but this system works independent of anything in hemp or cannabis, and it's really a remarkable system. And so I'm looking at a variety of non-cannabis solutions to influence the cannabinoid system, particularly compounds derived from fatty acids. And you, as a nutrition expert, know how the discovery of the eicosanoid system, these are hormone-like compounds that are derived from fatty acids, revolutionized nutrition, because we learned how fats like arachidonic acid from meat and dairy could promote inflammation. Or on the flip side, we learned how anti-inflammatory oils like omega-3 fats from fish and fish oil supplements could reduce inflammation. And the same sort of dietary correlations with dietary fat either being good or bad is being discovered on how they influence the endocannabinoid system. And then we can utilize some of these fatty substances to influence the endocannabinoid system in a very powerful way. One that I'm particularly excited about is OEA, oleic ethanolamide. This is oleic acid is the chief fatty acid that's found in olive oil, and our body is able to convert that to a compound called OEA, and OEA is also emerging as a dietary supplement. And this compound has tremendous benefits in feeding our microbiome in a very beneficial way, making it useful in restoring that gut barrier, making it useful in reducing gut inflammation, reducing fatty liver disease, influencing appetite control and helping people lose weight. It also influences the secretion of a compound called oxytocin. This is also referred to as the love hormone. It's something that is getting lots of attention. It makes us feel bliss. These compounds have a huge role in our mood and in our behavior and our joy in life. And so I'm really digging into how we can influence the endocannabinoid system in a positive way through nutrition, through diet therapy, through manipulation of dietary fats in particular, and then supporting those changes with appropriate nutritional supplements. I think it's a new frontier, and it's very exciting. What's interesting, just to kind of wrap things up, Sandie, is that some of these discoveries with the microbiome, the endocannabinoid system, and just our general evolution of understanding in nutrition and medicine, what they're doing is just reinforcing self-evident facts. And that means that the things that we associate with health are generally influencing these newly discovered systems in the way we want to influence them. So the standard Mediterranean diet, the traditional Mediterranean diet, is very helpful. A diet that focuses on a rich supply of low glycemic plant foods, adequate protein, and the right types of fats. They're helpful in influencing these body systems, and that's why these diet approaches are associated with living longer, reducing heart disease, reducing cancer, reducing dementia. So we just are reinforcing things that we already know, but they're being reinforced with nuances and new understandings. But as far as what people need to do, it's pretty much what they've been told for a lot of years now. Make sure you're getting 5 servings of vegetables a day. A serving is defined as 1 cup uncooked or 1/2 cup cooked, and try to have a mixture of 50-50. So if people do that, that's a huge step to improving their health and living longer. 2 servings of fruit per day. And then eating a low glycemic diet and getting adequate protein and good fats.
Michael,
all those are important.
I'm going to have to stop you there. I could talk to you for hours. I mean, this book is just, I'm such a nerd. I just love this book, and I heartily recommend it to anybody who not only wants to live longer, but wants to live happier and definitely, stronger. Michael Murray, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
The Longevity Matrix, How to Live Better, Stronger and Longer, is available to order online right now at thelongevitymatrix.com. Long before it's published, you can get it for, I believe, $10 with lots of free editions. Normally it's going to be $27.95. So do go over there, have a look at it, and check out Michael Murray's site at drmurray.com.